Hello. Yes, welcome to the channel. It's Sculpting Night, and yes, I know I'm about 2 hours earlier than usual. It was suggested to me on multiple occasions that I try to move my Sunday broadcast from 8 p.m. Central Time to 6 p.m. Let's see how it does. And here's Shinju. Yes, little furball. And, well, we're going to go ahead and describe what we're going to be doing today. Many of you may know who watch this, whether live right now, yes, or on the recordings on either here or YouTube, that most of the figures I sculpted during the first part of this series of videos were ones for players in my Saturday campaign. Well, tonight's no different. I'm going to be sculpting a figure for a young lady who plays an elven wizard. I used sorceress in the video description because it's easier than saying elven female wizard. It sounds a little bit awkward like that. And really and truly, whether a miniature is a wizard or a sorcerer, or even a warlock, really, the miniature, it's a magic user. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give about another 3 or 4 more minutes to try and get some people in here, and hopefully the person who I'm making this for actually might be in the audience, and with any luck we'll be able to get this thing going here in just a little bit. Before then, I would like to talk about lighting. Alright, the light that you're seeing that's primary, giving me direct light on me, is what's called a key light. It's the primary direct light. You'll notice that I've got a highlight on the side of my face. That's from this back here, no, not Shinju, but from the window above Shinju, which, as you can see, has another cat in it. And then the light that is filling in the shadows that the key light would be giving is called fill. And it appears I have at least 3 people in here. And I'm only seeing myself when I do an @ but oh well. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring you into the windows of the programs that I use. And that, once again, I had ZBrush up front instead of the primary program. And then I have a third cat. This is Ralph. Ralph has a red collar. Ralph is notorious for ambush snuggles. So I'm going to get him down. Ow! Get on down. Go! 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 Crazy furball. Anyway, this is Dad's studio. This is where I do most of the posing and articulation for creating these miniatures. The actual geometry that was created for these figures was done in 3D Studio Max. And then I brought it in here, and as you can see when I hit expand all, it's got a little, like an index of what body parts are parented to what, and then it's got weight maps that rig it. Now this basic figure has the advantage that I can turn it into a dwarf, or an elf, or gnome, or a halfling. This figure is not as versatile yet as the male figure, which can become orcs and trolls and all sorts of things. But for right now, all we really need is the elf. And yes, I will be fixing that weird bit with the corner of the jaw. And we're going to be tweaking most of the geometry once we actually bring it into ZBrush. But for now, there's a couple things we need to add. First, we need to add a spell shield on her right hand. Yes, that looks really, really big, I know. Go ahead and go to the back view. We need to put this deeper into her palm. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and just kind of wait until it almost goes out the back of her hand. There, that's too much. There we go. Now what's happening is the reason why it's in this spot is because if we now click that hand, we select that right hand and we bend it, it moves with the hand. It's parented to the hand is the term. And you can see it's got like runes and that on it. And looking at it, I think we probably need to go ahead and move it a bit further. Let's look on the left-hand side first. Oh, we need the right-hand side. And yeah, we need to move it backwards a bit because it's a bit too far into the fore part of the hand. And there we go. And the back view again, and let's move this out just a little bit more. There we go. And perspective view. Yeah, it's better fitting the hand. A lot of these props were originally made for the male figure, which is why they don't quite fit perfectly in the female hands, because location. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to load in just a basic generic wizard staff into the left hand with a tweak to the left hand pose for it. Now we're going back to the back view, but this time instead of that we're going to be tweaking the position of the staff. We want to make sure the staff is in the right spot. Now right now it's just a ball on a stick. That's because most of what we're going to do with that staff is that we're going to do a lot of sculpting on the actual sphere itself. Now the thing is, I think that might be a little thin. Let me make sure that I actually have, okay, yes I do have, see originally that staff was thinner. It was that thin. And it may not look like much just looking at it, but really, when it comes to printing, it's a potential difference between success and failure. So we're going to go ahead and leave that as is. We have her props. Just for the sake of making it easier to pose, I'm going to hide the shield. Alright. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in a couple pieces that will make it easier to put her in the dress that the player wants her character in. The first thing is, of course, that. What this does is when we take the geometry into ZBrush, we will be fusing this dress part with her actual body and smoothing out that seam where it appears. The next thing we need, let's see, where did I put it? There it is. It's called the cleavage eraser. Now what this does is, again, it will look more like clothing and less like, well, boobage. And that will also be smoothed in with the base geometry of the figure when we take it into ZBrush. Now we have our base figure, and the problem is our base figure is pretty much in a boring pose. People don't stand like that. Yep. And hello, object. Yeah, so what we do now is we actually come up with a pose. So, Mechan GR17, Mechan Girl? Well, I know who you are. I was thinking a pose pretty much, you got your staff in your left hand, and you're rocked back towards that side, holding your hand out and the shield in your hand. Just beer blocking. Engineer. Okay, Mech Engineer 17. Okay. I didn't know you were 17. So the way we do this, I'm going to go through some basics. One of the things is there's an imaginary line between the bones of the hip and an imaginary line between the bones of the shoulder. Those two lines are never parallel to each other or the ground, because if they are, it looks like a mannequin. And even most mannequins aren't that stiff anymore. So we're going to, with this one, it's going to be mostly, I'm going to bend a little bit forward, just a little, just because the way the hips are going to end up popping. And we're going to, let's see. Yes, I actually have to stand for some poses just to see how my body moves. Okay. And this way it would be okay. The hip is going to actually pivot towards the towards the staff side. Yeah, that's the way we want it. 5 degrees is all we really need. And now I'm going to hide the dress just to, again, to make it easier to pose. And what's going to happen is we're going to take this leg, because you notice that let me go ahead and show you the bones real quick. And you'll notice that the axis for that leg is like the equivalent of an inch taller. We could actually make it a bit more, because, yeah. And so that leg is actually going to be our support leg. We're going to bring it in from the side to side. I'm going to actually bring it mostly straight. And now we're going to bring it forward because we had bent the hip back. Now when we look on the left-hand view and we go down to the foot, you'll notice that it's, first of all, it's passing through the floor, but it's also not parallel. We need to bend it up just a little. Now we're going to go to the front view, and we're going to twist it just a little. And then we're going to zoom back out to see the whole figure. We're going to hit Control D, which brings it up to the floor, and we see that this leg is still lower to the ground than this one, so it's going to come out to the side. It's going to twist, and the foot's going to bend and then twist. Now, on our perspective view, we can see that that foot is still a bit low. We've moved it too far out. It's not going to touch the ground. We also need to bring it forward just a little. Again, because, let's see, that thigh went 5, that thigh's only 2. The hip, we went 6. So this one we need to go -6. And this thigh we're going to go ahead and go -4. Negative in this particular case is bringing it forward. Positive would be pushing it back. If you're looking at it on the axis of X, negative would be counterclockwise. Positive would be clockwise. Now that's almost right. Let's go back up to the front view. We need to bring the thigh in just a little bit more. It's too far to the side. Okay, now we need to go ahead, hit Control D so that this foot's the one that's touching the ground. And we're going to select both feet so we can zoom in on them. Now, twist it just a little. And bring that thigh in again still. That's about right. It's not actually touching the ground plane, but there's a bit of this foot that is poking through the bottom of the foot. Now, we now select the abdomen and chest. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bend them back just a little. We're going to twist both of them. And we're going to do the side to side individually. The side to side for this one is going to lean back towards this side. Too far. There we go. And then the chest, we're going to move it to the other direction. We're going to twist it a little bit more. Oh, that's too much to the other direction. And just move it till it looks right there. And we're going to bend it forward a little. Now, problem is I think that still gives us a bit of a parallel to the ground, and we don't need that. Just a little bit more twist, yeah. Okay, let's take that hip. That hip is... oh, wrong way. Yeah, it's not enough of the stance we're looking for. It's too close to a straight up. Front view again, Control D to drop. Down. And yes, this is how I do all my posing for all of the figures. There we go. And that means we also need to move the abdomen a bit more. Bring it side to side a bit more. Or actually, no, bring it this way, and the chest bending back the opposite way. That really, it's a bit exaggerated, but it's the kind of kickback that we're looking for. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and, it's not going to be quite as much side to side. Now, the next thing is, we're gonna, it needs to bring it a little bit less parallel. Now you can see that the line for the hip is actually going at a significant angle, while the line for the shoulders is going at a significant angle. Now the next thing we're going to deal with is the collars, the collarbone movement. A lot of people who do 3D animation forget this kind of movement. The collars actually move quite a bit. In this case, the collarbone for the hand with the sword, with the staff, moves considerably compared to the other one. We're going to bend that arm a bit and twist the hand. Let's make the staff visible. And right now it looks like a giant lollipop. I know. And we're going to just Z-translate the staff. Because, yeah, there we go. That's good enough. And that's the pose that all we really need for the staff. Actually, no, we need to move that, bend that in just a little bit because to make it a more natural stance with that staff. And then this shoulder is going to go forward. And it's going to twist a little bit. And then we're going to bend the hand back quite a bit so that our spell shield is actually as close to vertical as we can make it. And we can bend this arm up a bit more. I hate it when it does that. And then twist the wrist just a bit more. Oh, come on. Bend the hand back just a little bit more. And now when viewed from that front, that shield is standing. Oh, let's... can't rotate the shield, but yeah, you get the picture. It's going to have all sorts of the runes, and when this gets painted, you can, like, paint it with, like, bright neon in the crevices and a medium color on the surfaces, that kind of thing. Now, the next thing would be the neck and head. The neck would actually be kind of right now... Whoa! That was not the neck, that was the... There we go, the neck. Would actually be kind of further following the back and side to side and twist of the torso. But then the head would be bending forward. And then just to make sure, notice that we can see a little bit of space in the mouth. So we're going to close it. You see, I actually have the jaw as a separate piece. If I wanted to, she could be screaming. Ah! But we don't really need that. Her actual expression, I'm really going to... We don't need to worry about her brows. Her brows are another thing that we can do to give her expression. But do we want to make her a little bit worried? A bit snarky? That sort of... What do we want to do with her expression? I don't know if you want to be lost in thought while casting a shielding spell. They'd be like, did I leave the dryer on? Oh yeah, we got people attacking. Shinju, this is a family broadcast. Anyway. So, again, most of the expression will be sculpted in later with the actual sculpt, and honestly, a lot of it will be lost on the type of printer that I have and the type of printer a lot of the people who follow this stream have. Okay, let's see what happens. I think I might need to twist the hand a bit because, yeah, it needs to follow the direction of at least partially follow the direction of the line of sight. Now the next thing that we need to do, the long dress Okay, perfect. We don't need to worry about the bottom of the long dress. It's excellent. And okay, there's one more thing we need to add to this figure before we start sculpting it. And that's actually the basics for hair. Now you'll notice that the hair followed those ears out. We don't want that. There's really nothing we can do in this program, but we can fix it in ZBrush. Another thing we can do in this program, however, is we can fix this wrinkling here. And to do that, we have to go in and geometry selection, select by face groups, chest. And then let's go ahead and go to just a regular geometry selection. Selection mode, marquee selection. And unselect. Oh, come on. Unselect that. We want only the front of the hair to be affected by what we're about to do. And then we're going to hit Control Plus, and it's going to grow that selection. Go back here. Weight editing, smooth selected 1. And we're going to do it one more time. And then geometry selection clear, and that hair has lost most of that huge wrinkle. Now, this is the basics for the sorceress. The wizard. That is the foundation upon what we are sculpting. You're right, it is. I really should bend the arm a bit. I was hoping to represent, the whole stop in the name of the, Sorcerer's Alliance, but okay, let's see. Select this arm, and we're going to bend it back down. Bend the arm, and we're going to need to twist the arm better. And then we can bend the hand, unbend it, and even untwist this. There we go. Now, I will say there's going to be one warning about anyone that is going to print this figure. And that warning is you will need a lot of support on the shield when you go to print it. The arm will also probably be the point of failure. Right here will probably be where the miniature is at its weakest. On the other hand, if you've got a resin printer and you print this in a transparent resin and then paint everything except the shield, that shield's going to look awesome. Now, we have the basics. What we're going to do is we're going to first hide the shield, the staff, and the hair. Okay? The reason for this is we're going to fuse all of this into one geometry in ZBrush. So it's all getting exported at the same time. So File, you can't see most of what I'm pulling up for some reason. It doesn't like pulling up like export dialogues or anything like that. So, that's right. I'm sorry, mech engineer. Also, I do have to know, before we get started doing this, does this character have a name yet? And really and truly, if you don't want to use it, if you don't want her to be using a shield, we always could, hurl in like a lightning bolt or a arcane bolt. Oh, or an arcane bolt. Of course, that too wouldn't fit inside inside a dice box. Y'all were in need of something else yesterday. Should I tell them what y'all did yesterday in the game? Oh, and I got ambush snuggled by Carlton. He's the one without the red collar. Do you mind? I'm getting ready to be sculpting here. I don't need you coming in here and just ambush snuggling me. Yes? What do you see? Yeah. He wants to come help me. Ow! Going down. Good boy. Unlike Ralph, when I put him down, he goes away. He trots off for fun. Okay, I won't let them know how you, as a party, managed to help the big bad of the campaign ascend to the status of a demon prince. One step shy of a god. I won't tell them that at all. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to call it Elven Wizard, or Elfmaid Wizard. That's Elfmaid as an M-A-I-D, not M-A-D-E. Okay. Elfmaid Wizard body. Accept. Then we're going to hide the body and the cleavage eraser and dress and show the hair, staff, and shield. We're going to call that Elfmaid Wizard Extras. Now it's really the only two different pieces I need for this. Okay. I'm considering it. I'm actually considering getting a laptop and a resin printer and having a booth at local cons as well. Meanwhile, let me go ahead and shift over to the next program we're going to be using, ZBrush. And the first thing we're doing is we're importing. Let's go ahead and get in here. Meshes, broadcast, Elfmaid Wizard body. And here we have the basic Elfmaid Wizard, and as you can see, she needs some work. That's like the heel of her palm. That's because the rigging and the texture and rigging and all that and the posing in the other program is mostly just for shape. We do the detailing and refining in here. Now the thing is, we do also need to go ahead and bring in those other props, so we append a new polymesh and we import the extras. Now we're going to hide those extras. No. And go down to geometry, and we're going to subdivide it a few times. And when we're at, let's say 5 million, Yes, this is 5 million polygons. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. There's a thing called Dynamesh in ZBrush. And we're going to use Dynamesh to fuse it into a single... Okay, no, we need to do a little bit higher. Looking at the eyes. We're going to use Dynamesh to fuse it into a single surface. Yeah, the eyes look much better like that. Now you'll notice that where those pieces overlap, like from the body to the dress, is now a kind of a seam that looks more like it's jagged and it's not two pieces actually passing through each other. So now it's time for me to break out my Wacom. And what we're going to do, I have, as something nice and nifty, I have my Green Lantern crashed power battery stand I've made for the stylus. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to shrink the mouse a bit and I'm going to smooth out where the body meets the dress. Including on the back here. In addition, I'm going to be doing the same thing up here where it met with the cleavage eraser. Intent being that it should look more like breasts in a dress and not breasts sticking out in the middle of nowhere. Now, we have a problem with this side of this boob. What we actually need to do is not to smooth and erase it, but we need to inflate the inside with just a little bit. Which means drop this down to about a 4. I'm going to slightly, gently inflate this inside so that it looks, again, more like an actual human human-like anatomy. And the same thing goes right here. We need to inflate this and then smooth it out a bit. And smooth across the top just a little. We also need to smooth out the neckline just a bit because this is not the neckline that we want. And we're going to frame, and that zooms out, and you can see it now looks more like a dress, much more like a dress. Now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to cuss myself out because I forgot to bring this all the way down and I forgot to... Yeah, everything I just did, yeah, forget about 90% of it. Yeah. Now, we're going to polygroups, auto group. Okay. I'm going to select that. No, we're going to select that. And then masking, we're going to blur it quite a bit. And inverse. Now we're going to take... Oh, wait a minute. Now once again, select that. Make it go away. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to use deformation right over here. We're going to offset in the Y. Just very carefully to bring it down flat onto where the base will be. The reason for that is because we want the dress to be touching the base. If this was a molded pewter figure, they do this, you can have that dress or whatever hovering just above the base. But with 3D printing, by putting as much of it on the base as possible, it actually becomes much more stable and requires much less supports. But now we're going to move to topological. We're going to once again select this, make it go away. We're going to mask off the legs, bring it back. We're going to make this a bit bigger, and we're going to pull the dress. What the? It's not. Pull it up. Because what we're going to do is we're going to use this, it's going to be wrinkles of the dress as the feet poke out from under it. Now, geometry, divide. Oh, I forgot to divide. Delete lower. There! Now we Dynamesh. And do everything that I did at first, because I screwed up. There we go. All those problems I solved before, we gotta solve them again. Ha ha! Now, smooth that out once again. And although since I'm not explaining as I go, it probably won't take quite as long. For those who have never seen my show before, I normally only take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to make a miniature. And that's with explaining everything that I'm doing as I do it. Now you'll notice that it's not getting as smooth as it did before. That's because the larger the mouse cursor, or the more polygons under the mouse, the slower the smoothing. The less smooth it gets, because it's got to calculate more. Now we're going back to inflate and making this bigger again, and we're inflating underneath and under here, up here to bring it up. And we want it to look like actual human-like anatomy. Now, I know she's not human, but elves still have basic human-style anatomy. The same number of ribs, or I don't know about ribs, but the same bone structure, the same musculature style. They don't have triple-jointed legs or, anything like that. Okay. The basic dress. Yeah, we need to once again add some fullness to make it look like human. And I'm going to deflate just a little here. Once again. Now, frame it. There we go. And she's got her hip kicked out, and yeah. There. Now we're back where we started. Okay. Give me just a second. Need some soda pop, aka Coca-Cola, aka soda. This one says share a Coke with a friend. Y'all can't see, but Shinju here looks like she's about to be falling off her bed. but she's not. She's fine. Now, at this point, the next thing I need to do is her sleeves. And before I do her sleeves, I need to go ahead and smooth out the area in her inner elbows, because it's beginning to blend over a little bit. And we come over here and do the same thing for this one and blend out the side of the elbow, especially over here. And we need to inflate over here just a little, make it a bit more normal. Let's once again shrink it to make it smooth a little bit faster, and then yeah, there we go. We're also going to polish this area, the heel of the inside of the wrist, basically is what it ends up being. And once we've polished it down a bit, let's increase that a little bit in strength. Once we've done that, we're going to smooth it. It's kind of like the difference between using using that versus smooth to do something like this is like the difference between using a rasp and sandpaper if you've ever done any woodworking or any kind of sculpting. The rasp just tears away material a lot faster, but you don't have as much control and it's not as polished a look, despite the name of the tool being polish. Now we don't need to be as emphatic here as we would if this hand was just open, because this hand will be holding, the shield. And so now I need to ask our special guest mech engineer, yeah, the neckline, I need to do that too, but I'm going to do the sleeves first. Do you want long sleeves or short sleeves? Or do you want, sleeveless top? You want a nightgown? Not nightgown, a strapless gown. What do you want for the shoulder arms? Do you want there to be like, the sleeves end with little epaulets, and then you've got a couple little armbands and bangles? Okay. Also, one other thing. I'm assuming your ring, which is your focus, is on the hand that's casting the shield. Am I correct? Just double checking. Okay. She said she wants long sleeves. So how we're going to do this, there's a way that on most figures I use to actually draw out the clothing from the figure is I mask off sections of the arm in this case, and then I tell it to copy that geometry and extract it out. That's one sleeve. I'm going to give her a little bit of space. It won't be like completely up to the bone of the wrist, but it'll be kind of close. I can also see that we're going to have some problems with those pankies. Them pankies. Everything that is masked off right now will get copied and extruded out. I don't mean extruded like a like filament extruder or like the Play-Doh thing. I mean, all of these facets will jump out at us. So now I go to Subtool, and down here on Extract, 0.03. And I hit extract, and it looks like bracers. I accept, I deselect, and I go back up to her and I deselect her wrists. It looks like bracers, but I'm going to be smoothing out the back end of them so that they fuse with the arms, and that this is the cuff. It also looks, it also looks like it's way too thick. Well, that's because in reality this is going to be barely 0.2 of a millimeter thick. I learned my lesson on some of my earlier sculpts that what looks right in ZBrush on a miniature of this size is not always. Okay, let's bring this out. This is way too much, way too strong, way too fast. Okay. Now let's make this smaller, and let's lower the intensity of the smooth brush. Once again, the fewer polygons that are under the smooth brush, the faster that it goes. And I'm looking right at something else I don't need to worry about smoothing because it'll be covered by the base. What I need to do is I need to have the back end here eventually merging in with the forearm, and the front end smooth, staying kind of out, standing out from the wrist. And then while I'm doing it, I smooth out that surface. Now when I turn off the transparency, it fits a lot better. Now I got to do it on this side, using smooth to kind of blend in these big thick bracers on one side. It's actually going a little bit easier on this side because of the bend in the elbow there. I don't need to get too close because once again we're going to be doing a bit to it. Now, one thing we need to watch out for, and we need to go back to the move, is that gravity. Just a little bit of alteration of which side is which, just enough to give it a sense that it's hanging. We're going to deal with a significant chunk of that when we get around to making wrinkles in the outfit. Wrinkles are where most of our gravity is going to show. So now we're going to subdivide this a couple times just so that it's not as rough. We're going to go back to our mage itself. Now comes another big decision for our young lady guest star, and that is, what kind of neckline do you want on her dress? Do you want a plunging neckline? Do you want absolute cleavage, which I would not recommend because I already put in that cleavage eraser? That sort of thing. I can still put like armbands up around her upper arm. Okay, so we're going to have a neckline that's something similar to what I've currently got on my like a t-shirt, a high cut t-shirt neckline. All right, so the way we're going to handle that one is first we're going to go ahead we're going to draw the neckline with the masking brush. And now, admittedly, most of this neckline will be lost under the hair. That's good. And we're going to frame it. Zoom in. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to invert that and then start blurring it. Okay, now this is basically just an entirely different technique to do something similar. Now we're going to go in and enhance where the neckline will be. What will happen is everything that we currently have that's blurry will be partially masked. So we want to make sure that everything above that little neckline thing is fully masked. Make sure that everything's dark underneath the chin, on the neck here. Make sure that the actual line of the dress is where we want it. And now we go to deformation. We go to inflate, and we're going to pull it out a bit. Yeah, about there. Then we're going to unmask everything, and we're going to smooth it. Well, first we're going to enlarge the brush a bit, and then we're going to smooth it. The end result looks different. It's a different take on doing the same thing. But it has its pros and it has its cons. Right now, one of the cons is this whole fact that it bulged out right underneath the neck. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to use a brush called Slash. Wait, see if I can find where there it is, Slash. We're going to reduce the strength quite a bit. We're going to turn off Lazy Mouse. There we go. And we're going to basically enhance the edge here by tracing it over it. And that's too strong. It's actually causing it to fold over itself. Let's zoom in, and we just want to make the edge sharp. We don't want to cause the geometry to go nutso. And then we tap one to get it again. And then bring it around. One to do it again. And then from here we can easily see this. And tap one to do it again. Now we're going to do the opposite along here. We're going to sharpen the trench where it meets the neck. Actually, before we do that, we have to smooth this part of the neck out. I missed a segment of the neckline there, and it was rather ragged. Oh, and there's also a problem up here. Some areas that I missed when I was hitting the masking. Now, draw around here. We're sharpening this. Draw around here. And then I've got draw this around here. Some other areas I can just manually frame out. Now we're going to do what's called we're going to merge the base figure with the sleeves, I guess you could say, because we want to be able to blend them in before we start working on wrinkles. So we got to do this geometry Dynamesh again. And we're at 564,000 triangles. Let's enlarge the brush and smooth in where it meets the sleeve. You notice that it's now that it's much higher polygon where the sleeves were, it's taking a lot longer. We are not going to polish around where it meets the wrist. We're only going to polish where the sleeve actually is supposed to be one cohesive piece. Okay. And there we go. Now let's frame out. And there, it looks like she's actually wearing a gown. Now the next thing is, do you want a simple belt? Or like a fancy elven embroidered waist belt that looks like it could be one part girdle, one part World Wrestling Federation award, ultra flyweight belt, which is actually kind of common on a lot of the old Warhammer figures. I mean, let me go ahead and bring this in. If you look at this guy, come on, zoom. If you look at this guy, come on, zoom. There we go. He's got like these two belts. There's other old Games Workshop figures where they actually have belts that look like someone took a weight belt and put it on backwards. Something else we can do beyond that is we can add in like a tabard. Basically just brush off a section here and have it be draped in front, and you'd have like, embroidery and that on it, and then a belt over top of that. One thing's for certain, you cannot mistake her for male at this point in time. While we're waiting on her to answer, we're going to go ahead and do one other thing. There is a mild problem, very, very, very mild, with her jaw. The base elf morph I created for the female figure has a problem with her jaw and chin. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of slowly enlarging the jaw, giving her an actual jaw line and an actual chin. This is something I'm going to be fixing for future female figures. There. Actually looks more like a person. Well, not person, but you see what I mean. Okay, do you want a small belt or a broad belt? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I tweaked her jaw and her chin a bit. That's me. Normally I don't make quite as many mistakes. I'm just still overwhelmed about what y'all did last night, or allowed to happen last night. So a thin, very thin belt, a cloth belt. The material really doesn't carry through unless it's, really dramatic. Do you mean a thin belt or like a sash? Like a wide sash with a knot and dangly bits? Actually, I think the almost half smirk works for this character. A sash. Okay. Well, what we're going to do then is we're going to go ahead, zoom in, and as we did before, we're going to draw it on. Now this is going to go. We're going to put the knot. We're going to put the knot on this side. So it's going to go high up here and down here. And then and fill this in and fill this in. And now we're going to erase part of it just to make it more even of a meeting of sides. Alright, there we go. That's going to be where our sash is, without the dangly bits. So now we go back to Subtool, and we go back down to Extract. And we extract that, except and now the next thing we're going to do is Dynamesh it. And we're going to smooth the outer edges just because this is not the sharp end of a hanging piece of cloth. This is a folded and wrinkly and organic seeming piece of cloth wrapped around. It would also be a little bit closer to the torso up on the smooth side than on the rough side. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and subdivide it a couple times. One more. We're going to delete those. And now we're going to mask over here. And we're going to extract that. But we're going to extract it a little bit larger than normal. That's the 0.02, 0.035. Accept. The reason for this is that is our knot. So we're going to have to make sure it's a larger. We're also going to make sure that it's more spherical. Uneven, because it's not. And then we're going to go back and we're going to inflate it. The reason for this is because we need it big. And smoothing it out like that made it small. Okay. Now we need the dangly bits. And to do that, we have to go once again back up topside. This time we're going to just draw smaller lines. So first we have one, we got to hide the knot because it's going to be coming from under the knot. One dash hanging like that, and one, well, we're going to make them separate just because. Extract, accept, and now we've got to blend this in down here just to make sure it's kind of blending out. Dynamesh it, and then we're going to smooth this part and make sure it's coming in thin, so it does look like it's coming out of the knot. And divide. Now if we put the knot back on, yeah, it's coming out from the knot. And now we're going to hide the knot again. Oh, I didn't hide the knot, I hid the belt. Hide the knot again, make sure we don't have any. We're going to come out from here. Oh. Wait. No, it needs to kind of come out like this. So. And then we're going to sharpen a little bit of it this way. And we're going to go ahead and extract it. Accept. Geometry Dynamesh. We're going to make the knot visible again so we can make sure that it's going into the knot. And yeah, it's not, so no pun intended. So it's smooth out this side. And we're going to drag it over. Actually, let's make the mouse bigger. And we're going to drag it over. And there we go. Yeah, it's going into the knot. That's what we want. And so now we're going to go ahead and smooth out where it's meeting the cloth. Where it's meeting the cloth. And we're going to blend, we're going to merge all of the parts of the belt. And thus we have our sash. Now the next major thing we got to worry about is hair. And that's part of this. Now one thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we have it auto grouped. What that means is now when I click on the hair, the staff and shield disappear, and I can do this. Shrink the hair so it's not following those ears anymore. It doesn't look goofy anymore. And now that since it's on move topological, I can also sit here and, well, let me turn the head off. Let's bring the hair above the ear and behind the ear. See, normally this wouldn't be a problem on the human figure because it's made to fit the human figure. But this is obviously not a human. Okay, now we're going to use smooth to let these parts relax a little. We're then going to inflate those parts because if we don't inflate and they don't blend in to the front of the chest, yeah. Now we're going to move them down and against the chest and against the neck, because otherwise there'll be a problem for printing. And yes, I may be a bit more in the favor of art over printing, but the fewer problems we can give the poor printers, the better. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select the entirety of this, just so that I can now split away the hair to a different object and work on it. I see one spot I gotta smooth a little. There. Now this is just the volume that the hair will be in. And I can fix that hairline in just a second. But one of the first things I have to do is I have to give it more polygons, higher subdivisions. There we go, 225,000 polygons. I can imagine you're excited. Now, get up here, Shinju. Good girl. Yes, she does come with cold. Good girl. Now, we're going to go back to slash. We're going to do a lot of our hair work with the slash button, a slash tool, but at a higher tier than what we had been. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go draw on the individual locks. Not hairs, but locks. Because individual hairs would be beyond what any printer could ever do, especially at this scale. And even if you somehow had a nano printer that could do it, it would be beyond the ability of most painters to paint it. So, oh, too much there. Instead, we just draw out the individual locks. It's already looking a lot more like hair. Let's shrink the mouse a bit because it's behaving a bit too strongly. And now we're going to draw back to about where that is. And since this is mostly long, straight back hair, it's not going to be a lot of work. It's just a little on the tedious side. Zoom out. And another one coming down this way. And another one coming down this way. And then one more kind of appearing halfway down. That's the basics of the hair. Now what we need to do next is we need to make smaller little cuts inside the locks that kind of go in and out and fade and get stronger and weaker based on how thick the lock is at that point. Like they almost became different locks, but either faded away or merged with another section. And most of these will be down near the bottom. You can see it's already looking a lot better. It's looking less like a burlap sack on her head. Now the next thing that we do is we do the opposite. We turn add on. And we go around the edges of each strand. Because what will happen is this is where it will catch the paint if it ever gets painted. This is where a dry brush will scratch out the paint and it will look like yet another strand or another piece of hair in the strand. And one thing to remember is that no matter how quote-unquote amazingly beautiful any fantasy character is, they don't have a Hollywood makeup studio at their beck and call. So, especially adventurers, they will tend to be more messy-haired. I mean, I don't care how straight her hair is, it will be kind of wavy and tangled by the end of a long dungeon crawl. You notice that I'm frequently hitting undo here because I don't like what a particular stroke did to the hair. And sometimes I'm doing one of these kind of strokes on both sides of the lock. And that's because it kind of looks better that way. I literally do this, I play this by ear. I very rarely have something like this planned out. I mean, even if I use the same hairpiece again, it will never look identical. Because I'll be making different decisions as I do these bits, and different... Even if I make the same decisions, I'll be making different strokes. And I don't mean Gary Coleman. And that's her hair. Yeah, it was braided right before the sacrifice. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the hair, because I need to be able to access the body. I'm also turning off... Now I'm leaving the belt on for right now. Just for right now, because what I've got to do now is wrinkles. Now the way this works is, first I use the standard brush, and I make sure I've got lazy mouse off. I make it weaker than the default and a little bit bigger. And then, actually, yeah, I'm going to have to turn off the belt too. What I'm going to do first is I've got to do the underboob to give it a little bit of tightness. And most of that tightness is going to be right in here. And then I hit smooth, and I'm kind of blend it in just a bit. The thing is, most wrinkles follow gravity. This means that they'll hang before they curve back in. Even ones from the boobs. Even if the boobs don't hang, the wrinkles hang. Now it's a bit too much of a hang, so we'll blend and smooth it in a little bit. But the other thing we have to worry about is there's also a sub-wrinkle specifically in this area. And that's because it's hanging from something that has an undercut. And that undercut will occasionally have a bit of gravity to it. So we got to put these little sub wrinkles in there to show that undercut. And then we got to make sure we get this smoothed. And smooth that out, because that's starting to blend in. Yeah, there we go. That's much, much better there. Smooth here, here. Notice me zooming in and out like that because it actually makes it easier to see issues with, you know, like an area that's too smooth, or the wrinkles have not progressed properly. Now we're keeping the subtraction on because of wrinkles here. Now normally wrinkles, you know, are because of folding or compression. Very rarely, specifically in the case of cleavage wrinkles, they're because of tension. Instead of being compressed, they're being stretched. And we're going to go ahead, this time we're actually using slash, lower than what it was, to draw out the bottom of these wrinkles. It's hard to see the bottom sometimes. and we blend it just a little, and then blend it where it meets the sides. This might be a little too subtle for the FDM printers to see, so we're gonna draw in the wrinkles a bit more again. And then smooth it out. You got enough of the slash. Yeah, that's looking more like tension wrinkles. You can see those most often in a, well, let's just say a rather buxom woman wearing a T-shirt and many things online. Yeah. Now the next thing we're going to do is compression wrinkles, which in this case is from the folding of the shoulder down. And these tend to radiate out from the point where the fold is occurring. And we're going to blend it, make it kind of blurry at the ends. Oh, I accidentally blended part of the collar. There we go. It's at its most extreme, actually kind of near the middle of the wrinkle. And then we're going back to slash, and we're going to draw the bottom of the wrinkle and hit it with a smooth. Draw the bottom of the wrinkle, hit him with a smooth. Bottom of the wrinkle, hit it with smooth. And this has no row bottom, so we're just going to go kind of near the middle. Do it down here. Bottom of the wrinkle, and hit it with a smooth. Bottom of the wrinkle, hit it with smooth. And also we're going to really smooth out the ends. Bottom of the wrinkle, hit it with smooth. Bottom of the wrinkle, so on and so forth. We're going to do something similar right here. Oh, ow. Hold on just a second. My throat's starting to get a bit dry. I mean, it's already 7:30. Wow. Yes, I printed this to Mech Engineer 17. I'm going to tease you about that. It came, you know. And we're going to draw out a couple of wrinkles from under here. And then slash them on the bottom. Slash them on the bottom! That sounds bad. I won't say it like that again. Slash the underside of the wrinkle. And then smooth them. And make sure that this helps it look like cloth and not like, you know, somebody's just got a weird body. This one's going to be a little bit more extreme simply because it's a tighter bend. Okay, and slash. There. Frame. Now the upper side is, oh no, that's looking too regular. Let's smooth that out. Yeah. So the upper side is mostly done. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and smooth that out at the end of this wrinkle. The ends of the wrinkles really should be blending in with the shirt. Okay. And when we turn on our belt, yeah, it goes into the belt. It doesn't poke through. The next thing we got to do is we got to do the wrinkles from down here. Now these wrinkles will be a lot larger, and these are hanging wrinkles. So let me go ahead and increase the intensity a bit. And these are going to start from this hip. I'm going to come down like this. And kind of radiate. There's already one that kind of got built in, but we're not going to bother with that one because that one's a motion wrinkle. We're going to just end our hanging wrinkles on that leg in the back. Now we're going to make sure we're going to make it even bigger. Decrease the intensity just a little. We're going to go over the top portion of all of these hanging wrinkles. And then we're going to make sure to smooth out every bit of this lower half of the body before we go to the slash. We want to make sure, especially down here. In fact, down here we're going to go ahead and polish that. Like, remember I mentioned the difference between it's like the difference between a rasp and a file. And by starting off with that polish, it makes it easier to get rid of the bottom end. So yes, you're getting a lesson about types of wrinkles today. Now let's go back to the slash. I'm going to make this smaller. And once again, follow all of the bottom edges of these major wrinkles. And smooth it up. Smooth that one really well because it's about to have more compression wrinkles there. And then and smooth them. Now here's a secret. The sash is also going to have wrinkles, but they're going to be moving in the opposite direction. Now, let's make the sash visible. And let's make the sash our primary selected tool. And we're going to smooth out this bottom end. Let's polish again. Yeah. And smooth. Now we're going back to standard. And we're going to shrink it again. And what we're going to do is both front and back will have, let's make it big. We'll have a large bulge on top, a large bulge on bottom, and a wrinkle coming out from the center, coming out from that knot. There'll be a bulge on top, a bulge on bottom, and a wrinkle coming out from that. I'm going to go lower. And what's going to happen is this wrinkle is going to zigzag on this part of the hip. And now we're going to get the slash. We're going to start off from back here on the underside of this and come down low and hit smooth. And then we're going to come from the underside of this one and go kind of midway and smooth it out. Then when we get all the way back to here, we're actually going to turn the space between the wrinkles into a dig in. And once again, we're going to follow this back, and we're going to turn it into a gouge into the actual material of the sash. There we go. That's the sash itself. And we still have the two dangly parts of the sash. Okay. And hello, Baloo! As you may have noted, I've started quite a bit early today. And I'm doing a lot more cloth than I normally do for a young lady who's in my D&D game, who's currently in here as mech engineer. Oh boy. I knew it. And now I've got to go ahead and polygroup, auto group. The reason I did that is because I just realized I have to subdivide that part a bit more because it's not at the poly count tier, so to speak. By the way, have any of y'all ever watched Tier Zoo? Now, I'm going to do a slightly different take on this. I'm just going to give it a straight gouge. And a little bit of, yeah. This one's just going to have one fading and then one. Actually, no, let's do it this from here. One fading and then one coming up here. I'm going to relax them just a little bit, and then I'm going to add down here, and down here, and smooth it just to get it nice, even. And then this one is going to be a smooth slice coming down this way, and a zigzag coming back up, and then one down here. And a smooth just to make it a little bit more even. Frame. And for the most part, that's almost everything on the clothing. Actually, I think you said something about wanting to have armbands in the upper arm. Is that correct? Did you or did you not? Okay. Well, the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to fix the pinky. Now, we really don't have to fix the rest of the fingers, but we really have to fix this pinky. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to inflate, because we're going to inflate the inside of the pinky like it was a balloon. And, oh, we've got to turn it way up. Yeah, there we go, much better. And the reason being is because this pinky was not going to make contact with the staff, and we need the top and the bottom of it to make contact, because that will basically fill in where the staff is. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and bring the staff visible again, and we have to inflate on top as well, because that's going down. We need to blend it. It's going down, it's got yelling timber. Okay, I won't do that again. And smooth out that area. So let's turn down this. Once again, very few polygons here right now, so it's going to smooth a lot. Now, what we're going to do is we need to make the hands more detailed. No matter how good the rest of the figure is, if the hands are not detailed, it will look amateurish and slapdash and sloppy. The reason for this is because that's one of the things we see most often. Besides the human face, we see hands, often our own. And little details that we may not even pay attention to tend to stick out. Like those tendons on the back of some people's hands. The larger bone areas that come out where the joints are, both at the wrist and on the fingers themselves, and the knuckles. Plus the fact that it seems to be that the middle finger has the ring finger tends to have the same length of knuckles as the ring. Middle finger is slightly longer and the pinky is slightly shorter. And so we do this, and then we basically raise out the knuckle on each joint, and then we blend them together between the joints so that it straightens out the surface of the hand. And that includes in the front of the finger. Now the problem with this is this also tends to cause our fingers to blend together. So we go back to slash, very useful tool that, and we go ahead and we draw in the division between the fingers. Oh, that came out kind of uneven. We're trying to make it as even as possible. You see me hit Control Z a lot. I make a lot of mistakes, and I make no bones about it. Yes, I do. But I own my mistakes by, actually talking about them, and occasionally explaining why I made a mistake doing a given piece. In this case, it was not drawing my little slash in the right place. There we go. And see, with just that little bit, the hand looks a lot better holding on to the staff. And now we got to do something similar for the hand holding onto the shield. So we're going to bring over here, go back to inflate. Now with this hand, we don't have, we're going to go ahead and hide that and hide the hair because it's a little bit in the way. Right now, it looks like that hand looks like it was made by Aardman Studios, which is great if you're Aardman Studios or expecting claymation. It's not great for us. So, enlarging that joint, enlarging that joint, enlarging that one, and bringing it down. See how it's kind of an arc with the middle finger in the peak position of that arc. Now again, we don't need to be as extreme with the young lady's hand as we are with, you know, a warrior holding a sword. But it needs to be there, even if we just are just giving it the impression of being there. Just a little bit will be enough. Even if you can't pick out the detail on an FDM printer. I'm going to hide the head. I forgot I had done that. Even if you can't pick out the detail, there will be a faint hump that you can't quite even see that will fill in. It'll be just enough for your mind to fill in the gaps. And let's bring this up. And once again, screwed that up. Let's go ahead and turn on Lazy Mouse, just because what Lazy Mouse does is it causes the effects of the mouse to lag behind, which means it's easier to draw a straight line. Now the problem is it also reduces the effect. So I've got to go up to 40. Let's increase the lazy radius. And we go back to inflate because we still have to do the thumb. Mostly because the thumb actually deflated a little on its own when we were posing it, so we need to give it a little bit more meat. And we also need to add the bone there and the bone here, although the bone here is not as strong, and we need to give it a little bit of double line there because there's actually a pair of tendons that run down that line. Now, we go ahead, we turn on all the subtools, and I think we may have gone too far on the hands, but let's go ahead and just give it a light smoothing. The same thing on these hands. Just enough. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do, go down here, select the staff, and we're gonna split it off. Because this is going to be one of the focal points. Now, what I was considering doing is turning the ball on top of the staff into a much smaller ball being held in like a griffin claw or, you know, some other kind of monster claw. How does that sound? Or do you have a preferred concept? Because the whole point of that ball is it's just raw material. I can sculpt that into what you want it. So what do you want on the staff? Yeah, there's a lot of lag right now. Any suggestions? Any thoughts? More of a crook? Okay, I can do that. Would you rather have the crook or the claw? Whichever one is what you need. It's about the same, really. The crook would be a little bit faster, wouldn't be quite as fancy, but what we'd end up doing is just basically moving this in and smoothing the entirety of the top. Inflating down here just a tad bit, just because it's starting to unthicken. And then go back to move. Drag this up here. And we're basically playing around with the shape of it a bit. The thing to be careful of is we can't have it hook too much, because if it hooks too much, then it won't really print well. We already have a crook shape. Let's go ahead and make the wizard visible again. We already have that shepherd's crook shape. We need to go ahead and bring this up a little bit more and this down a little bit more. And we're going to smooth it just a bit. And then we're going to inflate it just a bit to make it easier to print. Shrink this. Now, do you want anything on the tip of the crook? That's the key. That's the final switch. Do you want anything on the tip of the crook? How about another can of soda? This one says, "Share it with America." America. Do you want anything on the tip of that? Because, I mean, it could be, you know, let's toss this away. Yay. Alright then. Let me go ahead and put this back over here. So like I said, the only reason why the standard wizard staff in my library is basically a ball on a stick is because from that you can make almost anything. So what we have is, we have her standing there, holding her crook, casting her spell, and there's one thing missing now. We've done two things. We're going to do one of them right now. One of them is, since we've gone through and dynameshed it a couple times, we're missing a decent amount of the detail in the face. Okay. So we're going to slash it back in. Hide the shield because it's hiding the face. First, we're going to make sure to why is it not? Hold it. What did I do? What? It's not letting me draw. Oh, I see why. Derp. No, no, no. Get down, Carlton. Get off the tablet. Get down. Fuzzball. I'm working. Scoot. Yes. I didn't have the face selected. That's why it was acting weird. Move down. Now I can zoom in. And let's make it a little bit smaller. Dig in the mouth quite a bit. Now let's turn off the lazy mouse because I need to be a bit more precise with this. And then let's draw on the seam around the eyes. Make it a lot deeper. Oh, too deep. The reason being is because this seam will not be visible on a printed figure as it is. By doing that, it becomes visible. And then come in here. Actually, we need to make the mouse bigger for this. Here, and back down to here. And then it's a little smooth. Oh wait, that's way too deep. Stupid me. I hit undo one too many times and it did not like it. Now, there we go. Once again, this level of detail probably won't show on an FDM printer because those ears are only a couple tenths of a millimeter wide. Okay. But it'll be enough that what you can see will be clearly visible. And now we turn that shield back on. Okay. Now, is there anything else you can think of for this figure to be finished as you see it? I'm thinking I'm pretty much done with the tablet. Anything else I do from here on out, I can probably do with the mouse. Right now, sadly, no. Because of the way I loaded it in, it's tilted. I can't redefine them without having it be totally weird and completely off balance. Okay. Well, there's one thing missing from this figure. Absolutely one thing. Well, besides merging it all down. Do one. And what it's missing is the base. We need to import a base. Now, what we got to do first is we got to move it so that, yeah, here we go. We got to offset it by Y. Whoop. And that's good. And then what we'll do is we'll slide it by X a little. Now, is it positive or negative for X? Okay, negative. Let's say negative 5. Negative 3. And then we gotta make sure she's centered in the... Yeah, she's pretty much centered on her base now with her staff. Well, no, she needs to go forward. The base needs to go forward a little. And the... Yeah, that's good. And Z. There. That is how she fits on her base. And it's the standard 20mm base there. Let's go ahead and subdivide it, the base, a couple times to make it blend in better. And merge down. Now, this right now cannot be printed. As things stand, this can't print. Well, for two reasons. Number one, a lot of slicers won't like it because what it's got geometry intersecting other geometry. Like the shield has a fully formed back on the part that is interpenetrating into the hand. A lot of slicers will go, what do? I don't know what to do. There's also the problem that right now, this particular model is almost 1,100,000 polygons. And just as an example, most of the miniatures I've done for the rest of the game group are closer to 70,000, not 1.1 million. So what we got to do is first, we have to dynamesh the darn thing again. Dynameshing will fuse all of these intersecting geometries into single solid surfaces. 3 good S's, single solid surface. So we go ahead and hit bing. Processing mesh faces. And this actually increased our polygon count. But let's look at where the staff is and where it's meeting the hand. It's flowing along a line of polygons there. Same thing applies to the base and the hair and everything. It's all fused into one single solid piece. But now we've got to get it to a lower polygon count. So to do that, we have what's called Decimation Master. Decimation Master takes each one of these tiny little... Let me show you just how tiny these polygons are. I'm going to zoom in on the face. and I'm going to turn on the framing for these polygons. You can see how small each of these polygons is. Just little squares. That's all they are. When you pull out, you can't see them. It all kind of blends into a single smooth surface. What Decimation Master does, and I'm going to go ahead and start it, bing! It's going to turn it into 70,000 polygons instead of 1.88 million. It takes each polygon and it measures the angle between it and any other polygon next to it. And it decides, can I combine them into one? If it decides yes, it takes both polygons and combines them into one single flat plane. If it says no, I need to keep that sharp because that's a sharp bend, it cuts that down. And so on and so forth. And now it is 90% done, and it will be saying it's writing a file, it's reordering, and you will see almost no difference when this is done. There. That is 70,000 polygons instead of 1.8 million. I zoom in, and you can now see those polygons are a lot larger and there's a lot fewer of them. But you really have, until you zoom in real close, you have a hard time seeing that. From this point of view, it still looks perfectly smooth and wonderful. That is the wonder of decimation. So we're going to go ahead now, and we're going to save this out. So we go to Export, and I save this in Broadcast Miniatures as Elfmaid Wizard Figure. Okay, that is how I make miniatures. I then take this into my slicer. I set up where I'm going to need support. For example, I will probably need support down here under the sleeve. Definitely need support under almost the entirety of the rim, lower half of the rim of the shield. And I might need a little bit of support on that chin and on the tips of the ears. Other than that, this one won't really need a lot of support at all. This is a rather nice little figure. The thing is, that shield will need a boatload of support, and so will that arm. But the end result, the less support there is, the higher quality it becomes. Let me go ahead and turn back to here. Now you'll notice that I'm a lot darker. I just realized that, yeah, because it's starting to be sundown. Let's go ahead and open up the webcam controller and turn on the right light. Yeah, there, I'm a lot easier to see now. It's back to where I was at the beginning of the show. Yay! But now I don't have that light coming in over here. And by the way, in case you were wondering, there's Ralph. Carlton is in the windowsill, I think, and of course Shinju's right here. Shinju, her, she is 12 years old. Anyway, the different colors in that bit where I was showing you where the polygons are, all that is it's ZBrush keeping track of what used to be what group. It's something that's entirely internal, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't keep it or anything like that. So we now have our miniature finished and ready for me to load into print. In a couple hours, I'm going to put that up on Thingiverse with a render of the figure standing there. And by Saturday, you will have a copy of this for you to use on the tabletop in the game. Hopefully without letting a demon princess send this time. Just mess with you. So, that is my show. That is how I sculpt. I've been on here for about 6 hours and 15 minutes. Or 2 hours and 15 minutes. I've been here since 6 for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, I'm probably going to go ahead and I'm going to call it here for tonight. And part of that will involve me holding up my hand over here and wiggly fingering. Because when I can see myself doing a gesture, I know that I've caught up to the lag, and that's fine. But I'm probably going to be permanently moving the Sunday streams to 6 o'clock instead of 8. And don't forget to, don't ignore Nightbot down here where he's saying, there's my Discord, my Thingiverse page, my YouTube channel, and yay! So, there we go. I can also now show off a figure that I sculpted for someone for their their boyfriend's birthday. And this person, the only way to put it is the boyfriend liked the business orc character in Shadowrun as a street street mage in a business suit with a briefcase. Business orc. So I made him a business orc with a Gordon Gekko slick back haircut. Yeah.
So, deal or no deal? Whoosh.
Yeah. That's actually the same flame that I had Tristan's original figure holding out before I did the redesign. Anyway, but yeah, it's almost 20 after now. I've got a lot I've got to get done before end of day. I'm gonna get her. It's up to that person. I doubt I'll upload it simply because it was a commission for someone's birthday, and I gave them the mesh to use to send up to Thingiverse, or not Thingiverse, send up to Shapeways or whatever if they want to get a resin copy. So I probably won't put that on my Thingiverse. Even if I did, it certainly wouldn't be in the broadcast section. It'd be in just the main. But yeah, that the miniature we sculpted today, the sorcerer, the Elfmaid Wizardess. That's the one you want to print with the clear resin and paint the rest. So that shield is nice glowy green. I did that based on two pieces of information. A thumbnail that was the grim, that orc's expression with the slick back hair, and you could see a business suit collar and tie, and the knowledge that he plays a street mage in Shadowrun.
You don't want to fight the orc businessman. You see, orc businessmen, they're legitimate businessmen, but they got all these families to feed. You understand? I mean, you don't want to come to them on the day of their daughter's wedding and ask them for a favor. That would be rude. That would be impolite. But if you do, it must be with the understanding that you would then owe them a favor. And you never know when they would be calling on that favor.
So no, you're not fighting the orc businessman.
No, he's an antiquities dealer. Yeah. You know, he imports antiquities to antique shops. Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, once again, it's now 20 after, and I really need to go ahead and close this video down. The miniature's finished, the miniature's ready to upload, the miniature's ready to print, and I've given a nice little in-depth discussion. Just real quick, we covered types of wrinkles in cloth drapery. Admittedly, the drapery I did on this figure was overly simplified. That's very, very basic. A lot of them aren't even really in the right place. It was just quick sketching them out because at this tall, there's not a lot that really stands out if you try to do really accurate draping. One other thing I didn't mention. When drapery, when it bends, doesn't have a smooth, curved bend. Like, if I took a piece of wire, held it by the ends, and I bent it, it would form a loop. If I took a piece of cloth and I folded it, it would have a sharp fold. And then I fold it again, it would have a sharp fold coming this way and a sharp fold coming this way. So that's just basics. I know I've covered anatomy in the past. I've covered medieval history at one point, I think. You know, like, what's the difference between a longsword and a Kriegsmesser? What's the difference between a Kriegsmesser and a katana? It's actually a lot less than you think. So anyway, yeah, I won't forget Dysengard this Saturday. Now, you do know I have a third dice tower. Where is it? There it is. I have the Druid's dice tower. It's a hollow tree. Drop the dice into Druid's dice tower and they come out the door. Oh, and so knowing that this is one of the standard figures, do y'all want to fight him next week? Notice the Greco-Roman garb and the long sword whose blade is almost as wide as y'all are tall. Yes, that is supposed to be a Titan. Titans are like CR 30. You gotta have a party of about 5 or 6 30th level characters to have a chance against it. Brandon, let me brag on my player over here. Her and the rest of the party. You say your group has trouble with goblins. This party is 5th and 6th level. When they were 4th and 5th level, they took out in one encounter. Now there's 7 of them, admittedly, but they took out in one encounter 2 CR8s, Hezro demons, a CR7 Mind Flayer, and the CR2 Intellect Devourer that is an insta-kill. It's the only insta-kill I have found in 5th edition. It comes within 5 feet of you. You and it roll an intelligence check. If you do better than it, nothing happens. If it does better than you, your brain is teleported out of your skull onto the ground, and it teleports into your head. Your brain is now dead. There's no way to survive this without passing the initial intelligence test. But the point is, level 4 and 5 at the time took out two CR8s. A CR8 is supposed to require a party of 5 8th level characters. And a CR7 had 2 CR8s and a CR7 and that little insta-kill puppy. And they beat them with... just waded right through them. Of course, then they went and fought 2 CR6 Chimeras and nearly got their tails handed to them. But that's because, in my opinion, Chimeras are underleveled. They're CR6, they should be CR8. Yeah. Well, anyway, it is now 8:26. Yeah, it's the fire breath. Be glad that the I was using the stats for a half dragon mercenary for the next to last bad guy, with the one that had the 3 thugs with him. Be glad he never successfully made his recharge roll for his fire breath, because that took out almost half the party in one shot. Know what I mean? Almost half the party taken out by a 7d6 roll. Of course, that 7d6 roll, which the average of 7d6 would be 24. I rolled 31. Alright. Good night, Mech Engineer 17. And... hey, Shinju. Yes, give me kitty kisses. Oh, you just want snuggles. Yeah. All 3 of my cats are very snuggly. And I will see you all next time I'm on, which will probably be Thursday at 8. So I'm going to hold up my hand here, and I'm going to count down from 5 to 1. When I see my hand go to 1 on the screen, I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream. So that's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.